is up, guys? Dan Candy Reacts here. Today I'll be reacting to banned episodes of SpongeBob by Mung. Banned episodes of the show SpongeBob, which I can see pretty much some of it probably from back in, like, I guess the early seasons of SpongeBob. I think season 2 or season 3 might have some, but there are some from like season 5 or 6, because I know there was one from what was the episode called? In Spongiac. I forgot what the episode's called, but it was the episode where SpongeBob had a lack of sleep, and basically he keeps going to work like tired, and just, he messes up in the kitchen. And so Mr. Krabs told him to get enough sleep or else he'll get fired from his job. And so basically he ends up telling SpongeBob, go to bed early, get enough sleep. And then SpongeBob tries to go to sleep, but except he can't because there's nothing for him to go to sleep to. So he ends up going to Patrick's house to have Patrick help him. For all the other people, why Patrick? I get Sandy is unavailable because she's tired, but at the same time, why Patrick? So then he ends up trying to get Patrick to help him fall asleep, but except Patrick ends up giving him coffee. So then SpongeBob ends up having these weird hallucinations, and some of them were kind of disturbing. I think from the original storyboard of the episode, there is like a different scene in the episode where he hallucinates Mr. Krabs, like a giant Mr. Krabs, chasing him with, like, I think mustard handles on his head or something like that. I think there's a different scene instead of that, but it ended up getting replaced with Mr. Krabs just chasing him. But that episode was kind of creepy. I think that was from season 7 or 8, but that episode was disturbing. There was also some other ones, but maybe this video would explain some of those. But yeah, the original video will be in the description down below. If you want to check that out after this, be sure to do so. So now let's get to this video.
SpongeBob SquarePants is the most iconic and popular show ever. They have some of the best cartoon episodes known to man, but among a vast collection, there has to be a few that pollute it. Today I am talking about the episodes of SpongeBob that are frowned upon, specifically those episodes that made parents call and complain. I scrounged the web to find a bunch of those so-called controversial episodes, and I'm going to determine if they really are or not. Midlife Crustacean, probably the most infamous episode. Mr. Krabs is having a midlife crisis. He believes he is too old for everything. He perceives the world treating him differently due to his age. At the Krusty Krab, he overhears SpongeBob and Patrick talking about their party later that night. Mr. Krabs weasels his way into an invite and goes out on a night of fun. Mr. Krabs quickly finds out that SpongeBob and Patrick are losers and don't actually do anything youthful or fun. Once Mr. Krabs confronts them on this, he leaves. But Patrick suggests one last thing. A panty raid. Mr. Krabs becomes intrigued and agrees to partake. They climb into a house and steal women's underwear. And shockingly, it was his mother's house. Thus, his mother's underwear. So, I don't think I need to explain why this was banned. It's a pretty adult theme and not the most appropriate, obviously. And
I think if I remember that it was only banned on Paramount Plus. I don't know if it's banned on Nickelodeon, because I remember I think Nickelodeon still aired it, but it was barely like once or twice. They would only air it like whenever they feel like it. But when Paramount Plus came out, I think that's when the episode fully got banned, along with what's it called? The snail race. I forgot what it's called, but I think it was the snail race episode that paired up with this, and so they both got banned. No, it's called a Great Snail Race, but they both got banned from Paramount Plus. I think they're now back, or I think it's still banned. I have to check that out, but I think they're both permanently banned from Paramount Plus. But yeah, that was funny how SpongeBob basically, literally leaves them. Same with Patrick, because even he was acting like, "Why didn't you tell me this is my mom's house?" Like, "Well, you didn't ask," and then it just left. Like, and then SpongeBob comes back like hours later, like, "What are you doing here? Like, get out of here." But it's so weird. It ends with him just sleeping in his, I guess, childhood bedroom. But yeah, I can see why the episode got banned, because of like a lot of adult jokes in it. But it was still a pretty good episode though.
Jokes throughout the episode are also more adult than usual. This episode was pretty out of character for Mr. Krabs, but especially SpongeBob and Patrick. They have never once showed interest
Mostly
in women, and here they are acting like they do this all the time. It's a fine episode, and it was one of the more iconic ones for me. I definitely don't think it needed to be banned, though. Rockabye Bye Bell,
that one I
SpongeBob
hated.
and
I did
Patrick
not
find
like
an
that
abandoned
episode.
baby clam and decide to raise it and be parents together. Patrick wants to take on the role of mother, but SpongeBob insists that he cannot because he doesn't wear a shirt. Patrick then accepts the role of father, thus making
That one
SpongeBob
made a
the
weird,
mother.
weird joke.
The episode then plays out in the
like,
typical old school
how is a
idea
starfish
that the
and a
father leaves
sponge
for
do
work
that?
and then
Like,
leaves all the
what?
housework for the mother. Patrick continuously promises to help out with the clam, but never does, even going to parties well into the night. They fight and argue, and Patrick decides to up and leave back to work. We find out his work is watching TV and eating ice cream at his house. While they argue some more, the baby clam is about to jump out of it, but that's because it can fly. It says farewell and leaves, and then SpongeBob and Patrick come to the realization that it was hard, but it's worth it. Patrick ends the episode suggesting they have another. The controversial aspect of this episode is that SpongeBob and Patrick portray a couple. First of all, no. They are playing on the stereotype of fathers that provide yet are absent and mothers that do all the thankless work. I mean, they quite literally say that at the beginning of the episode, assigning roles of mother and father. I feel like this theory would have more credibility if there was any allusion whatsoever to romance, but there is none. So by no means should this episode be controversial. The Great Snail Race.
Yeah, that
SpongeBob
one, the Great
learns
Snail
of a snail
Race.
race that Squidward has entered his purebred snail, Snelly, into. SpongeBob then wants to
That
enter
one I
Gary
hated
into
this
the
the
race,
most
but
because
all
of how
Gary wants to do is watch TV.
bad
SpongeBob then takes on the
SpongeBob
role of a
tortured
super
Gary. Like,
demeaning
I
and
felt so
abusive
bad for
coach.
Gary
He
in this
trains
episode.
Gary's little heart
He
out,
did not
so much
deserve
so
it.
that Gary is unable to even begin the race. Squidward's snail
Like,
takes
Larry
the lead.
did not deserve
Meanwhile,
it.
Gary and Rocky, Patrick's Rock, hasn't moved from the starting position. After much verbal abuse from SpongeBob, Gary begins the race and goes into overdrive, and then begins to catch up on Snelly. After a minute though, Gary's eyeball pops, and then another pops, and SpongeBob begins to regret his demands. Gary's engine then bursts and skids off the track like crazy, damaging himself and his shell until he crashes into a wall. SpongeBob goes to comfort his half-dead snail. Snelly sees this and decides to go to Gary in a fit of love. Squidward understandably becomes disgruntled, and Rocky somehow wins the race. The controversy with this episode is the obvious animal abuse. It is clearly apparent, but it's also the moral of the episode. Hey, don't abuse your pets or this will happen. I don't understand the controversy because they are by no means encouraging you to yell at your pets. This one doesn't really make sense to me.
Exactly.
Squirrel jokes. Squirrel jokes are the
That
only
one
kind of
was okay.
jokes
I like
SpongeBob
that
finds
one.
success in at the
Squirrel
Krusty
jokes.
Krab comedy night. The squirrel jokes are the fish version of
wasn't-
blonde jokes, but
It
the main
wasn't too
punchline being
bad,
that
but
they are
I can see
dumb.
why a
Of
lot
course,
of people were
his friend
mad
Sandy
because he
Cheeks,
made
who is a
jokes about
squirrel,
Sandy, but
witnesses
it
these
wasn't too
jokes
bad.
and feels offended. After her multiple attempts to get SpongeBob to stop, she invites him over to the tree dome where she feeds into the stereotype that she is stupid. SpongeBob quickly learns from his mistakes and goes back to comedy night, making fun of all species. So the claim is that the squirrel jokes are code for racist jokes. Honestly, it's a little understandable, but only a little. SpongeBob is making jokes and being derogatory to a species different to his. So when you put it like that, it does make more sense than most of these on this list. However, again with the moral thing, SpongeBob rights his wrongs and makes everyone happy. It teaches a valuable lesson, and just on that, it shouldn't be banned. Selling out. In this episode, a bunch of powerful executives waltz into the Krusty Krab and offer to buy
one
it.
wasn't too
Mr.
bad.
Krabs originally declines, but then is offered a heaping load of money, and then quickly accepts.
I mean, he
He
did buy
retires
it
and says a
back at
laundry
the
list of
end, so
things
I
he
mean,
wants
at least
to
he
do.
got the Krusty
Within a
Krab
few
back.
mere hours, he completes everything on his list. Meanwhile, at the Krusty Krab, actually, it's not the Krusty Krab anymore, it's Krabby O Mondays. It has turned into a sports bar type of thing, and SpongeBob and Squidward are essentially prisoners. The Krabby Patties are no longer made by SpongeBob. They are gray sludge that is painted with color and pumped out of a machine. Mr. Krabs comes back to work as a busboy and ends up exposing the place, destroying it, and then rebuying it. I think this episode is great and the message is right in your face, and I love it. Of course, that's why it's controversial. People supposedly didn't like the messaging of big business being bad. I have to question, were these people's complaints, or big business disguised as people complaining? A+ for this episode and
Exactly.
should never, ever be banned. SpongeBob's Last
That
Stand.
one was a good
Plankton
episode.
is
I loved
creating a
that one.
superhighway that completely plows through jellyfish fields and forcefully relocates all of the jellyfish. This superhighway will also go right over the Krusty Krab and lead straight to the chum bucket. SpongeBob and Patrick go
And
around
Plankton got
protesting it, being
revenge. No,
portrayed as
Plankton
hippies
got
at one
revenge
point.
at
The
the
entire
end where
population of
jellyfish
Bikini
ended
Bottom
up.
goes against
Or I guess the
SpongeBob and
jellyfish
Patrick's
got
movement.
revenge at the
Mr.
end.
Krabs is desperate, and as a last-ditch effort, he wants to sell Plankton the Krabby Patty secret formula. When Mr. Krabs
Because they ended
arrives,
up
the
coming to the
dislocated
chum
jellyfish
bucket and they
infiltrate
started
the chum
attacking
bucket and
Plankton.
stink
So I guess
Plankton.
they got
The other
revenge on
jellyfish
Plankton.
wreak havoc in Bikini Bottom and they cause destruction. SpongeBob speaks out to everyone on TV, and all of the citizens of Bikini Bottom form an alliance to help destroy the superhighway, restoring jellyfish fields and Bikini Bottom to its natural state. So this is not only a fantastic episode, but doesn't seem problematic at all. This episode raises awareness for the environment and the preservation of animals. Last I checked, I don't think that was a bad thing. Ink Lemonade, the worst episode on this list.
disgusting.
Not because it's super controversial or anything, but because this episode just sucks overall. There's no quality, there's no jokes. I was so bored watching this one, and it still baffles me how hard SpongeBob fell from grace. This is also one of the most
I'm
hated
saying this
episodes
is one
in
of
the
the
entire
newer
run of the
seasons
series.
that these
In this
episodes were
episode,
just
Patrick is running a
disgusting.
lemonade
Ew.
stand, but it's actually just water. There's a super nasty scene where Patrick rips off a Band-Aid and puts it on a rotting lemon gifted to him by Squidward. Patrick then uses that nasty lemon to make his lemonade. SpongeBob comes by with a megaphone and scares Squidward into inking into the lemonade. Squidward runs and hides in embarrassment, and Patrick sells the ink under the moniker of Black Lemonade. It's an absolute hit. This giant tent outside Squidward's house filled with stuff to scare him, and after 1,000 unfunny, over-exaggerated faces later, Patrick gets a ton of ink. Squidward breaks through the tent and learns they have been selling his ink. He blows away SpongeBob and Patrick and creates his own, but learns he's unable to create it unless he's scared. Once he is threatened, he inks all over the entire mile-long line. Everyone is then disgusted and throws up inside Squidward's house. It's not a great episode.
No.
By no means. The reason for it being controversial is because of how Patrick torments Squidward into inking. I mean, isn't tormenting Squidward like the longest running joke in SpongeBob? I don't really see how this is much different.
And it's just
I guess they
Patrick
usually
doing
do it
it, like-
by accident, and this time it's intentional, but this episode raises no red flags. Sailor Mouth, one of the more
Sailor Mouth
iconic
was a good episode.
Sailor
That became
Mouth is the
popular.
episode where SpongeBob and Patrick swear. So SpongeBob takes out the trash, and on the dumpster some special swear words are written. He reads them out loud, and then
But
is
yeah, I
censored
think that
by
episode
dolphin
got
sound
banned
effects.
because
He then
it's no
teaches
longer
Patrick these
airing,
words
and I
and
think
goes through the
Nicktoons
Krusty
reruns
Krab
either.
shouting them. Mr. Krabs reprimands them
Nicktoons
and
airs
teaches them about swear
SpongeBob
words.
every
SpongeBob and
day,
Patrick leave
and
and
I
play a
think this
game
is
of
the
eels
only
and
episodes,
escalators.
or I guess
SpongeBob
one
then
of the few
swears and
episodes
Patrick
that
decides
are
to
no
tattle
longer
on him.
airing.
Patrick then also swears. The two race to the Krusty
But this
Krab
episode
and
was
tattle
my
on each other.
favorite. I
Mr.
love this
Krabs
episode.
punishes them both to paint, and then Mr. Krabs stubs his toe and swears.
Sorry to pause, but this is one of the episodes I think I remember they were doing, because I remember back then they were doing like these TV shows that were teaching kids not to do any of these. Because I remember they did one with Arthur, the Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, I think, and some other shows at the time. But SpongeBob did one, and I think they were trying to teach like the audience, like, don't say these kind of words and this and that, be respectful. But I can see why this episode got banned, because I don't think it's on Paramount Plus anymore. Maybe it is, but I know Nicktoons doesn't air the same with Nickelodeon anymore. They don't air these, but this is one of the popular SpongeBob episodes that I still love today, and I still, think about it.
Then the three of them are punished to paint Mrs. Krabs' house. This does have a more adult theme than other episodes, and it's right in your face. But the moral by the end is to not swear, so I think it redeems itself. No, it shouldn't be banned, but it is understandably a little controversial. The Splinter.
Oh,
I think
God, I
we
hate
all
that
remember this
episode.
one from our
Ugh.
childhoods, unfortunately. SpongeBob gets a splinter while at work, and he spends the entire episode trying to get it out and hide it from Mr. Krabs so he doesn't get sent home early. Squidward eventually lets Mr. Krabs know, and he pulls the splinter from his thumb. This episode is controversial because of how disgusting it is. It genuinely is so disgusting. From watching the
Ugh.
splinter enter SpongeBob's thumb, to watching Patrick further hammer it
God, I
into
hate
his
that
thumb
scene.
and then
Oh.
infecting it with garbage. And then at the end where Mr. Krabs pulls it out and drenches him in pus. Were they really this low on ideas? There's a
Exactly.
few
This
funny
episode's
parts, but this
disgusting.
episode was so disgusting, and we don't need to unnecessarily expose kids to this. I don't think gross out humor, if you can call it that, is funny by any means. This one should be banned, and I think that is kind of the
And
consensus.
what made it worse is it
Just
turned
one
purple
bite. Here is probably the most ridiculous
when Patrick threw
one.
trash
The episode
on it. It
starts
just
off
made
with
it
Squidward
worse.
hating Krabby Patties, completely
This one
denouncing
wasn't
them.
that bad. I
SpongeBob
actually
says
liked
the
this
only people
episode.
that don't like Krabby Patties are the ones who haven't had one, and Squidward reveals that he has never had one. SpongeBob tries his hardest to get Squidward to try one, and finally he gives in. He takes the tiniest nibble and falls in love, but puts up a front that he hates it. Squidward buries it in the sand and SpongeBob leaves. Squidward then digs it up and devours the sandy Krabby Patty. SpongeBob later apologizes for being pushy.
That face.
Meanwhile, Squidward is trying his hardest to secretly get his hands on a Krabby Patty. He makes a fake order and even attempts to dig one out of the trash. Later in the night, Squidward dreams of Krabby Patties and eventually makes his way to the Krusty Krab to try and sneak inside the Krabby Patty vault. SpongeBob then also arrives because that just happens to be when he gets there. SpongeBob puts two and two together and learns Squidward loves Krabby Patties. Squidward accepts the truth and locks himself inside the vault and devours every patty in sight. He is warned not to eat them all because they will go straight to his thighs and then he will explode, both of which happen. It's a fantastic episode with some really iconic moments. Struggling to see the controversy? You are not alone. So really, this episode is subliminally talking about addiction, specifically food addiction. The only thing that gives merit to this supposed controversy is the fact that Squidward tries to hide it. The entire plot of the episode is based on how this is a completely out of character for Squidward, not addiction. There's very few things in this theory that can even make it valid, but I had to put this episode on the list because it's talked about a lot. Quarantined Crab.
Oh,
This
God,
is the second episode that was actually banned. This episode and Midlife Crustacean were
this
the
came
only
out
two
2020,
episodes
that was the
ever
worst
to
time.
actually get banned. And today, in 2024, this episode has been unbanned, leaving Midlife Crustacean the only truly banned episode. This episode deals with quarantine and spreading sickness.
I know this
It
came
was
out
scheduled to
during
release in May of 2020,
and I think
which
they
just so
banned
happened
it.
to be when we were all quarantined and spreading sickness.
Yeah,
it was
so I
all
think
completely coincidental, though.
I think
This
Nickelodeon
episode was
aired
created
this, I
many
think, in
months or even years
2022
in
or
advance.
2023.
The episode painted a really bad picture for quarantine, which probably wouldn't
But it
have
was,
been the
I
best
don't know,
for
the
the
episode
time.
was just
In
weird and
2022, after all the
disturbing.
COVID stuff had subsided, Nickelodeon finally released this episode in America. However, it had already been out for 2 years in Europe. The health inspector comes in the Krusty Krab, and using a certain device reveals someone has the clam flu. SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, Mr. Krabs, Mrs. Puff, and Pearl are all locked inside the Krusty Krab, and they have to figure out which one is sick. Mr. Krabs brings up an old Navy story about how this same thing happened to him on a boat, and they locked the sick one in the freezer. They pick each other off one by one until everyone besides Mr. Krabs is in the freezer. They realize none of them are sick and form a coup to capture Mr. Krabs, who is really the sick one. Mr. Krabs acts feral and runs from them. They try to capture him, but they kind of fail. Later that night, the health inspector comes back to tell them the equipment was upside down and no one was sick. Upon his arrival, every character now has a certain illness, and Mr. Krabs has a combination of all of them. This then leads to a super quarantine and a pretty somber ending. Of every episode on this list, this one does make the most sense, as it was time-sensitive and later. One course meal. This is one episode that seemingly flies over people's radars. In this episode, Mr. Krabs finds out Plankton has a whale phobia, and then completely abuses this information. He dresses up like Pearl and scares him constantly, to the point where Plankton is frightened to go outside. After multiple weeks, he gives up and decides there's no point with the constant mental torture, so he decides to lay in the road and wait to get run over. It comes across relatively lighthearted in the show because Plankton makes multiple jokes about it, but it really is pretty dark. What's worse is that Mr. Krabs gets tons of enjoyment out of it and looks forward to it. SpongeBob devises a plan to cheer Plankton back up and to get back at Mr. Krabs, which he does by capturing Mr. Krabs and forcing a mime on him. SpongeBob then projects whales outside, and Plankton is scared again. The episode has a loose plot. It feels like they had a decent idea for an episode but needed some filler. I mean, there's like a 1.5-minute long battle sequence at the start of the episode. It's definitely not the best thing SpongeBob has produced, but anywho, the controversial part is the constant mental torture. It's like Ink Lemonade, but so much worse. At least Patrick had a motive to scare Squidward. Mr. Krabs just does it to mentally torture Plankton. And the moral by the end is to get back at bullies by bullying harder. They failed on that front. Remember, kids, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. There were a few more I was going to put on this list, like A Pal for Gary. It is one of the worst episodes, and a lot of the story is about pet neglect. Another episode I considered talking about was SpongeBob, You're Fired. The episode paints a bad image for the unemployed and shows SpongeBob acting completely opposite to himself and getting depressed. I didn't talk...
That one was stupid. I don't know why that episode came out, because literally SpongeBob was fired in the past. He was fired in Karate Choppers. That was the first episode that he got fired in. Then he got fired in um, a few more episodes. He got fired in what's that episode called? Oh no, Squid on Strike. Yeah, it was the episode Squid on Strike. He got fired by Mr. Krabs because he thought Squidward was, gonna quit, and basically he was gonna go on strike, and so SpongeBob wanted to join him too, and so he didn't know that once you're on strike, yeah, you're gonna get fired. So then he got fired from Mr. Krabs, and so he ends up not having a job, and so he ended up joining Squidward to go on strike. But except SpongeBob took it too far and destroyed the whole Krusty Krab. So yeah, that was not the first time SpongeBob got fired. He got fired so many times back in like the old seasons, and the first one was Karate Choppers. But yeah, that episode was just worthless. I don't know why they made it, and then he ends up getting rehired again. Like, that makes no sense.
In depth about these ones simply because I wanted to talk about the other ones more, and I didn't want to make the video forever long. But there you go, that was your honorable mentions. So at the end of the day, do any of these deserve to be banned? Absolutely not.
Not really.
Not any of them. You know what? I take that back. The Splinter. That one's disgusting, and in general, not the best the show has to offer. The thing that I just don't really understand is that in Midlife Crustacean, they show underwear, and the episode is overall more adult-themed.
Exactly.
But how is that
no
any
sense.
worse when SpongeBob or any other character is
the
shown
Splinter
with
one,
their
that's
butt out,
the
or
Splinter
even
one
for direct
should never be
comparison,
made.
shown in their underwear?
That
How is
episode
that
should
not
never
inappropriate?
been
I don't
made.
know.
Like, that
I don't
episode
make the
just
rules.
is.
I should, though. My first rule would be to hit that subscribe button, or else.
That's it. I thought there was more. So there's a few more episodes that got banned, I believe, or should be banned. Okay, I guess that's it. Wait, hold on. Okay. Yeah, but some of those episodes shouldn't have been banned. Some of them should have. That one SpongeBob episode where Squidward got his toenail destroyed under that couch. Ugh. That episode, that was the House Fancy episode. That episode should have not aired. Like, ugh. I don't know why they had that scene in there. Like, that was just disgusting and disturbing. And then what's worse is that toenail came out of his foot, and then he slips on it, and then he basically shows it to SpongeBob right in his face, like he has to go put some ointment or medicine on it. Like, that is disgusting. I don't know why the episode was ever made. That's literally the worst in the Splinter episode. Like, ugh. So yeah, House Fancy and the Splinter should never been made. I don't know what the creators were on making those episodes, but those should have never been made. Ugh, that was, ugh. Like, God, I hate those episodes. Every time those episodes air on reruns, I would just skip them. I'll watch all of them, but except those two, nah, I would skip them. But anyways, guys, that's the end of the video. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, and hit that notifications button to get updates on videos I'll be posting on this channel. And before I go, comment down below what SpongeBob episode did you dislike the most. It doesn't have to be the ones on this list. There can be some other ones, like the newer ones, or there can be some ones from like back then. Like, let me know what SpongeBob episode did you hate. You can name one or two. You already know the episodes I hate, but yeah, let me know in the comments down below which episodes from SpongeBob did you hate. And yeah, without being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.